Okay, seems good.
Okay,
Are you ready?
sure.
All right, William. You guys went 7-0. Is that correct? You guys went
That is absolutely
undefeated.
true. Yes, sir.
How many games did you lose? Individual games.
I think two. We lost one to Gladiators because we got Huskard, and then we lost one to OG because we wanted to test something.
Oh, wanted to test something, huh?
Yeah, I
Sounds
mean,
like the test didn't go well.
it didn't. We were gonna do it again. Well, me and Zai were down to run it again because, okay, what's really funny is if we hadn't tested and we had if we had tested and we had lost again, then OG wouldn't have been in this situation. So I kind of feel bad because I like Tommy and I want him to do well, but at the same time, I kind of feel like that one's on them. Like we're not just gonna give you free wins, Like you got to earn those wins. So
Sure, sure.
maybe we would have tried a lot harder if we didn't get fucking Quinn Huskard to go undefeated. But
Oh
once
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
happened, the motivation for staying undefeated was kind of low. Because going 14-1 versus 14-2 is kind of there's really no difference. Versus going 14-0 is kind of hype.
Yeah, yeah,
Can
yeah,
they
yeah.
complete the clean sweep? And then it's kind of interesting. But once we lost, it was like, all right, whatever.
You
We'll
guys
see what
did.
happens.
I'm looking at the last game now. So you guys did Mag Monkey King.
Yeah,
Is that is? I
yeah.
don't want to expose too much here, but
It
is
wasn't
that
the Mag Monkey. It was just
it
what we
was?
banned, and
Okay.
not to
Oh, okay.
sell it too hard, but it's just, it was bad.
It was bad.
Yeah, it was just we were just stupid. What can you do?
All right. So you wanted to do the podcast,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
we did a podcast not so long ago. So I have to assume there's just stuff you want to talk about.
no, okay. What I really like, um, what I really like about this podcast is it really helps me two things. One, it takes away my ability to want to communicate in a blog or some shit like that. But I really want to look back in these moments in my career and remember how I inherently felt during them. So
Okay.
I never
Okay.
watch
Yeah. Yeah.
back
Yeah.
once we do them, but I do want to watch them once everything is done. It'll be a good memory for me to really remember how I felt in the moment. It's not for me to brag or anything because I've done it when we do really shit as well. So it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
record for me to understand how I felt in the moment. And so it's yeah, I want people to I think it's pretty fun for people to follow along in our journey, and while I think that part's nice and it's a good way to communicate with fans about how you feel being in a position in a top tier team, I think the bigger thing for me is it's a way for me to kind of see things back when I was younger and even maybe a few years ago, I hated the idea of recording or taking photos and stuff. And while I post less and less in social media nowadays, except to flex once in a while, the
Hmm.
majority of social media is so that I have somewhere that I can keep stuff and just kind of post memories for friends. And I take a lot more photos just for myself than I used to. Because I used to think it was dumb and it ruined the moment, but in reality, all it is you're just solidifying memories.
Yeah.
Now I'll look at my phone and I'll see memories and things that I did, and I'll get really happy. And I'm getting older, and I want to get to the point where things are more sentimental to me. So
Yeah. That
yeah,
makes sense. The I definitely use the other podcast to air my grievances, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah,
And so I know at least what you're talking about when it comes to the communication. Instead of, as you said, writing a blog, I actually did that recently. I wrote a big ass blog about casting, and I did not release it
yeah.
under advisement of somebody else. They said, probably not the right time. So I figure I'll probably release something like that in a little bit later.
Um, Speaking of which, we can talk about the casting stuff first. First of all,
Oh yeah,
I guess. All right, so you can't really have an opinion on it because you're biased, and maybe
yeah.
I am too. But at the same time, I feel like I don't really care anymore. So, I mean, I see a few things. Like for example, the whole Sheever not getting invited to events and stuff. I think is kind of silly considering I do think while I think it's really important to give people opportunities, and I'm not saying that it's not, I do think like it's probably not a great sign when you're probably, even if a few people dislike her and stuff like that. I would say like if you're a famous person on the internet, and we're not really famous, but famous in our weird subsection of the internet, like our small pie slice of pie or whatever, where like 10
Yeah.
people would recognize you in your lifetime.
True.
And if
I'm
your
up to about
ratio to
6
like,
right now.
yeah, your ratio of love to hate is like 80-20, which I'm assuming is for Shiva, because she's never really done anything wrong. She's just a good person, like unlike me and you. Um, like
True.
her ratio is probably a lot better, and so it's kind of sad that like she has no controversy. She's only ever been a good ambassador to the game and the scene and stuff like that. Only ever really been a good person behind the scenes. Like she does a lot to try and like progress stuff. Doesn't gatekeep talent, which I think is always a weird thing that people talk about. I don't know. It's kind of unfortunate that she doesn't get invited to stuff. Um, and I get it. And people always talk about Dota as like some weird inner circle and stuff. And I think that's further from the truth as possible. I think if you talk to like guys like Tsunami that came into the scene and you ask them their process and how it was to like interact and get more into the scene, I think they would tell you that we were nothing but helpful. And we really try to give as much advice and like our thoughts and try and help out. I think I remember you and me helping Lyrical out when he first started casting. We went through his VODs together and kind of told him like what to expect at a TI, what to look out for, stuff to avoid that has hurt casters in the past, things that we've learned. I
Oh,
mean,
I actually don't remember that.
we did. It was at one of his first events.
Oh
And
shit.
when we pushed for Trent to be on the panel more at ESL, remember when Paul was really skeptical and stuff?
Oh yeah.
Like,
I remember that.
I think there's a lot of issues with the scene. But I think for the most part, the existing talent do try and help out. Obviously, we had bad moments too with the whole Toby thing and Grant.
Man,
But
we really fucked up helping out Lyrical. Why'd we do that?
yeah, he's gonna be the next guy to fucking get outed for being a piece of shit. Um,
I was more so saying that he's now really fucking good. You
yeah, I
know,
mean that part sucks too.
we're only supposed to help out the shitters. You know,
Yeah,
the
I've been
people
sending
who
like
would remain below us.
yeah, I've been sending like positive words of affirmation to Stormstormer throughout the season because I really like the guy. And then I just think to
Yeah.
myself, if he ever beats me, I'd be really sad. I said
You're
I
like,
should have
you
just
could do it, bro. You're getting better every day. And then he beats your ass at TI, and you're just like, fuck.
yeah, like I think
Shouldn't have encouraged that.
I don't think he'll mind me saying this. I just sent him after the first loss. I was like, hey, like it's a long season. Keep your head in the game. And he's
Mhm.
really positive, so he's like, yeah, I got it. Like it's all good. And then when they fucking tied in the tiebreaker, she texted me and he's like, God damn it, XD. And then but for the most part, I just want I don't think that like the pie is so small that it can only be divided by a certain amount of people. A healthy scene has a lot of people that work really hard and like do well. And the idea that like you can't be a nobody, you need like some level of connections. So a few things. Like one, obviously you need to find a way to get yourself out there. So the best way to do it is to make friends with people that are in the thing. I think that's kind of similar for any industry. And second, I'd argue that Dota has like more influx of talent than like pretty much any professional anything that I can think of. You know, how
Yeah,
many
I mean,
times
you
would we have
mentioned
somebody like
Tsunami, but I don't know. People's memories are. You always talk about how people's memories in Dota are short when it comes to like
they're so
playing.
short?
You know, I think the same thing. You say Tsunami, I bet most people are thinking, "Oh, Tsunami's part of the old guard."
Yeah,
But if you
no, he came
actually
in the
look at
last
it,
like
he's really
few
not.
years, and then
Yeah,
you have people like Sheep and Nat T, and
yeah.
even
2 years
guys like
down the line, fuck, it's gonna be like, Sheep's really gatekeeping the fucking talent.
yeah, it's really weird. Once you like get invited to a lot of events, it's almost like you have to stop going to events so that people think that you're not in some kind of weird inner circle. And that inner circle is called just being friendly with the people that you work with. You fucking
Yeah.
socially awkward. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, when people just assume that like the world is out against them, of course there's a lot of luck, and part of life is networking. Like I don't know what jobs. I wish we lived in a world where things are only ever done by merit and like your actual skill at all times. But unfortunately, that's not the case. I'm sure there's a billion other coaches that are better than me. Actually, I know there are. But I happen to be somewhat charismatic and likable, and I did a really good job of giving top to like everybody on the team. So, here I am. I'm the best water fetcher in the fucking West. So, and I don't make waves. So, like this clown makes people laugh. And so
Yeah, I
fortunately,
think.
I had my job.
I mean, I think for talent in particular, people always think about the competition angle, but people forget that it is a cooperative affair. And so
Of course.
your ability to get along with other people is pretty important because there are moments you see on camera that are just like, like I know you've seen him, I've seen him, where it's like you've got two panel members on the same panel that just do not have good chemistry, and the panel just kind of like sucks, and they
Yeah.
don't even hate each other. They just have bad chemistry. Now imagine if they actually hated each other, or
Yeah.
just like, or one of the people was just like really like antisocial, awkward, like kind of a dick or something like that. It would be even worse than just two people having bad chemistry.
When I made a tweet, I want to say quite a while back, asking Dota casters if they wanted to get better at the game, saying I would actively help. Like, you know me, I will always volunteer my time in terms of stuff like that. Like, I'm trying to coach like the
Yeah.
Wales team right now, and I did it for the Purdue team, my
Who?
old alma mater.
The Wales
Uh,
team.
yeah, like the country, because I'm living in Wales, so I figured I can
Oh.
help out.
I was thinking
Um,
literally the animal,
oh no,
and I
no,
thought there was like a Div 2 team called
no,
Wales somewhere out there.
yeah, but I remember I made a tweet way back when saying like back when like fucking Skype was a thing. Like, if you want to get better at Dota, DM me. And I think only like 3 people reached out. I think it was like Dragon Drop. I think it was like Llama Down Under and Moxie.
Hmm.
I think that was the list of people that like actively wanted to like understand the game a little bit better. Um, and I always message Sheep my thoughts on like the games and stuff, and I give her some level of insider knowledge and things. So you know, the scene isn't as bad as we think it is. It never is. Um, but yeah, that's my rant on casting. It's not really like things are just inherently socially based, guys. Unfortunately, you don't just like enter a casting competition and whoever's the objective best. You have to be both good and like nice to work with. I don't know many jobs that's not like that. It's really frustrating. Even when OpenAI, like they're popping up everywhere nowadays. I asked them
Yeah.
actually about working there, and not about me working there, but just like what it was like. And they said a lot of the times you'll get guys that are just incredibly smart, but just brutal to work with. And they've got like the shortest leashes because ultimately somebody that's slightly worse at the job but gets along with their colleagues just gonna get further ahead. And maybe you would consider that unfair, but life's fucking short. I don't want to work with assholes.
Well,
Unfortunately, we were wrong with people about Toby. Well, we weren't really wrong about Toby. We all knew he was an asshole. We just didn't know like the fucking
we didn't know
level.
he was a predator, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and we didn't know about the grand thing, obviously, but and that was probably our fault too, because but it is what it is, and trying to do better by it. Uh, so not that that absolves me or anything like that. It means I have to be more careful around people, be like smarter about things.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely had to be a lot more cautious about who I back.
Yeah, it's not even just
Character
that.
wise.
It's just kind of like in some level of hindsight, I wish I had just tried harder to like find out stuff. When
Sure.
you're friends with somebody, you just like hand wave so much stuff. It's just bad. I mean, so irresponsible actually. So fucking irresponsible. But any case, in a brighter note, that was my whole spiel about casting. It didn't really go anywhere. Kind of, it's like 12, and I'm in a lot of pain right now, so I'm just ranting. So we can talk about the season. Fucking go over it.
All right.
I'm gonna
So
load up Liquipedia. Shout outs to Liquipedia so I can see everything that happened.
Liquid ended up going 7-0. Turns out picking up potentially the best player in the world is pretty good for for a roster.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, all right. So legitimately, I've been covering Southeast Asia, so I haven't watched like the most of your guys' games because
Mhm.
they're kind of awkward time. But I do think that watching you guys play, I do think that some of your players are playing like just as good as they were doing in your guys' like TI run. They look as good, if not better, than they did any time last season, basically.
Yeah, for sure. Even though we
Mhm.
were 7-0, or 6-1 or some shit last season one. I think part of the reason why it feels different is a few things. Like one, this feels a lot more sustainable because I feel like the guys finally got the monkey off their back and they're not nervous anymore. For example, like Mickey would get really nervous before games, and part of my job was always making sure to hype him up and like help him get over losses and understand that like it's not the end of the world that we lose a series, and it's not his fault because he'd get so down on himself. And
Mm,
nowadays he fucking just floats. You know, like a loss, win doesn't matter. He's just really calm and in the zone, and he's excited to play all these. Whereas before, I felt like before TI, I felt like every game was like a struggle for him to like not throw up. Real Eminem, you know, mom spaghetti vibes.
right, right. Okay.
And nowadays, I feel like he's just clean. And me and Aiden in the past, I felt like we used to make a lot of big issues out of nothing. And nowadays, a lot of our friendship just boils down to like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't mean that. And he'll say, oh, my bad. And then he's like, do you need to talk about it further? I'm like, no, I'm good. And he's like, I'm good too. And we just get over stuff. Whereas in the past, it felt like every discussion had to be this like huge, explosive, like dramatic, emotional, you know, like, how could you? I'm so sorry. You know, like, we don't have that
Yeah,
because
Jesus.
we're both dramatic people in general, you know, and we're
Oh,
both emotional people, I would say. Both of us.
okay.
I mean, you've met me and you probably know that side of me.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I'm getting a lot better at it in terms of like not making as big of a deal about stuff and trying to be more objective. And so is he. You know, he's done a lot of growing, I feel. So nowadays, like when stuff bothers him, in the past it might take me or him like a full 3 or 4 days to like not let it sit in our heads. And nowadays it's like, oh yeah, my bad. You know, like you good, I'm good. So then we just kind of move on from stuff. And then Zai obviously being in the leadership role and taking over drafting makes stuff easier for him too, because I feel like he can just kind of focus on him bringing his own ideas. Because I feel like in the past he actually felt a lot of responsibility because you know people wouldn't play as many games as they should, and you know if you looked at Aiden's page back in the day, he was playing like every role to try and get ideas because people weren't really sharing with him as much as they should have. Which is something I think I brought up too, that he was doing a bad job of like finding his heroes last year. And this year, I felt like everybody just kind of is doing their own job and pulling their own weight, if that makes sense. Like
Oh,
everyone's
okay.
playing, everyone's bringing ideas to the board. We're constantly talking about Dota. Last year, it felt like there was very little discussion around Dota itself. Whereas it feels like this year we have a much clearer idea of like how to talk about just the game, you know, and we're always talking about it. Whereas last year, I felt like especially my understanding of the game, it got better and better, especially working with Jarrett and seeing like the things that he saw. And so nowadays, it's a lot easier for me to like prompt conversation around stuff. Like, oh, why did you think this worked out? What did you think about this draft? And now Mickey always asks me, you know, he's like, what do you think about this draft, Will? And you can feel that like inherent level of trust that he knows that I know my stuff when it comes to drafting nowadays. So then it like everything just feels like it's flowing really smoothly. So yeah, you know, we
Not
practiced a
to
lot. So
kill too much because it feels like all right, everything's like clicking for you guys.
yeah,
And
of
I
course.
don't want to downplay that too much. But is it how much of this is just like the whole, winning solves a lot of issues?
Oh,
Like
for sure, for
is
sure.
it possible that like you talk about a lot of like maturity and growth happening within the team? Is it possible you guys are just winning and like that just makes everything feel better as a result?
Of course, you know, both things can be true. I think I genuinely think the guys have like learned a lot. Because for
Okay.
example, our
Yeah.
secret against or our series against secret, I feel like in the past would have freaked people out. It's like, oh god, we can't lose to them. Like we took Nisha, if they beat us, like how embarrassing, we're trash. And I feel like nowadays the feeling around that going into that series was not that at all. The feeling was like, man, I really want to fucking play these guys. It would be so exciting. So, yeah, that's like part of it.
What has changed like culture wise? Because you talking about the fact that you've like people maybe weren't like playing as much Dota as they should have, and therefore weren't like finding their heroes for a
Mhm.
drafting perspective. Now you guys,
Yeah.
it seems like everybody is like being much more responsible about that. Like what changed? Because is it just the success at TI? Like the everybody that I have met and gotten to know on that team.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really know Nisha, but like everybody else seems like they're relatively like good, responsible Dota players. So
Mhm.
what has changed? Are they just enjoying the game more because they're winning because they got that, like as you said, the monkey off their back from TI? Like what do you think that is? Why is this happening?
Um, okay, let me be real here. I love Lasse Erpalainen to death, but he was, and it's partially my fault too. But I let him be really lazy,
Mm,
and there was a lot of stuff that when it came to like, I think especially for Ti, I've never seen a man so possessed. I think at Ti he was the best player in the world, like unquestioned. Like fuck Nisha, it was Matuma man.
hmm.
What he did to make sure that that run went well is like, it's Herculean. The vlog that we made did a bad job of focusing on the players because we didn't want to bother them and we didn't want to like publish. Bad job is makes it sound bad. I mean to say that like they just didn't really have a chance to like talk to the players because our run was so good that I know Dennis was really conscious of the fact that he didn't want to bother them. He
Yeah, it
wanted them
couldn't
to
be
just kind of
intrusive,
exist.
right? Because
Yeah,
your
exactly.
guys' performance was way more important than what the documentary
Yeah,
would be.
exactly. And
Yeah.
I really appreciated that from Dennis. I love Dennis to death. Like I want all the best for him, and so uh, when he's making the doc, he really has to focus on us, which is a little bit of a shame because you don't get the full sense of like what Lasse brought to the table for Ti. But before that point, I think he was a little bit um, like in his head a little bit for certain things. I don't think the process was very fun for him at times. I think for Ti he was able to pull it off, but I think for other things he was a little bit more stubborn. Love him to death though. Like I'll go to war with this man any day of the week. Uh,
Do you think that was just sort of like he just wasn't enjoying, like he's at the end of his career, like he didn't seem like he was enjoying Dota as much anymore, so it was just like harder to find that motivation until like the biggest tournament and the final tournament comes around.
yeah, I mean he would always say that like if this team fails, it's kind of on me, as in like himself. He would
Yeah,
always say like I'm the person that's the most veteran, and I like should bring the team together, and I should do all these things. And he would always tell me he can't. He'd say like, oh, I can't. But then I think for Ti he could turn it up. But I mean, it's not all his fault. We all went along with it too. We were complacent because we thought there was no way we wouldn't qualify through points. There's some level of like established arrogance there, and it's my fault especially too, even more than Matu's, because I'm supposed to lead the ship in some ways, and make sure that like I'm above all this, and I wasn't. I was really swept up into it too. So
hmm.
after this, we had a long conversation after our 7-0 about how we keep the momentum going, about how we don't burn out, how we like don't get too cocky. I stressed to the guys like this is nothing. Going 7-0 is promising start. It's obviously really good for Nisha to show off and like show that he really here to fucking like uh fucking own people. But at the same time, like what have we accomplished? Like we have the same amount of points as a lot of teams. So it's just about
So
setting up the next function and the next like making sure we're disciplined. We'll start our boot camp early. We're gonna make sure that like we just grind and grind and grind and grind. Whereas last year I felt like every time we did good, we would just put we would take our foot off the gas because it was like, oh, I mean that's why TI winners always like slow down most of the time, right? Because like you win and then you think like you figured out what winning is, so then you don't work as hard to like figure it out again because it changes all the time, right? Like
sure,
winning,
yeah.
the conditions to win at stuff changes all the time, like in anything. What once worked in the past, for example, a TI1 where you didn't have to boot camp. I remember, I think it was like Loda saying you didn't have to boot camp so much. But nowadays it's like that's the meta, right? Boot camp.
Right.
Back then coaches weren't really a thing. And now we fucking had 3 at this last TI. It's the meta for what works, it constantly evolves, and if you're just complacent and you're just pacing you're chasing past glory and try to make things work because it used to work like that, I feel like you just get left in the dust all the fucking time. You have to keep innovating, keep trying to figure out what the next step is, keep trying to figure out like how to get ahead of your opponent. What are people not doing that you're willing to do, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So hopefully this time around things will be better. Obviously, I have no idea. I'm trying to stay grounded and understand too that like this could be, the next day we could lose 2 series and everyone calls us dog shit and it gets in my players' heads and my head and who knows. So
I mean, I don't want to curse you guys or anything, but like obviously the first DPC season had a team that had like that incredible run, right? Alliance
yeah,
did
yeah.
it over and over again for the online portions, but then
Uh-huh.
failed to deliver for the actual lands. So
Yeah. I mean,
uh,
I kind of felt bad for that team because I do think that that format actually hurts more than it helps. I think that team wasn't as bad as everyone made it out to be, or like as choky, and they were all like, "It's only because of PBD." When in reality, that does a really poor job of like explaining out things. I think that
yeah, I
Alliance
mean
team,
PPD was only with them for like half of one
yeah,
season
they, I
or
mean, they
something
still
like that.
owned
Like
like
they
every
still,
fucking
yeah,
season, against like top team tier European competition. I feel like they got memed to death, but uh, I you go to a major, you get to play 4 games, like potentially, and that's it, and then you go
Yeah.
home. Whereas like everybody else got to play groups and stuff. Not that that like fully excuses it because teams like EG obviously still did well, and I'm sure the secrets and shit did fine, but like it's not
I
the
think
best
if you
format.
look at the stats, I remember looking through it, and it was like, despite the what you would presume to be like, oh, these are the best teams because they get slotted into playoffs. Like it did. There was no inherent advantage.
Yeah,
Like they more often than not, they would actually get dropped down to the lower bracket than stay in the upper bracket from that very first series that they play. Like more often, the team slotted seated directly in a playoffs would actually drop down immediately,
yeah, it's
which
kind of
I think
shitty.
says a lot because especially since they're supposed to be better, quote unquote, than their competition.
Yeah, really wasn't the biggest fan of that, so I'm glad that they changed it. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so hopefully the momentum continues. It does feel different, but saying that we could just go to the major and get fucking owned. So you never know.
They-
I'm just trying to keep a level head because what happens in the beginning of the season really doesn't matter at the end of the year. Like I see a lot of people flame all these teams. Oh, geez, so dog shit. Like they're a new team. They're such a radically different team. DM to like Amar is as far different as it gets. There's no
you think
time
like
to like
play style wise? Are you talking about?
yeah, and like his picks and like getting used to that. I'm assuming is just going to be hard for them in the beginning. You saw OG like picking him Timber at the end too because they probably needed to pick up some wins and they kind of inherently understood that Amar's way of playing enabled the things that they did in the past. You know,
Hmm.
they picked Timber right in the OG series or whatever. Like
They
they were like,
got a. I mean, one of their Timber games was a win against you guys. That
yeah,
was
yeah.
that second win.
I just mean, there. I think what ends up happening is you go back to like what you know in some ways,
Sure.
and so I do think that he's a unique player. DM's really good. I think Amar was like super fucking unique as far as Dota goes, and so he
Yeah.
probably needs some time to adjust. And I just feel like sometimes fans have like no patience. It's not every fan. A lot of fans do. Like shout out to Powder who, supported us even when we were dog shit, didn't qualify for TI. But I feel like some fans, and if you're listening to this and you're one of those fans that are like, this team is amazing. Liquid's the best team in the world. OG's so dog shit. Like that's not true. You know, you never know. We could get to the end of the year and we could get pumped. And it could be done by OG. You just don't know. And everyone's like, kick Amar, Nigma, you're so fucking bad. It's like, it's not like they were setting the world on fire with Miracle. I mean, I think that guy's one of the best to ever do it, but like, something was bad with their team. They needed some level of change too. It's
Yeah.
not like they're like, one is Miracle coming back. I'm like, bro, they got relegated like 4 times with that dude. It wasn't like they missed 2 TIs and they got relegated like twice. Like, it wasn't
Yeah.
getting much better. At least this season, you didn't get relegated. Which probably feels amazing. You got some good wins if you're Nigma. You really got some good wins, and you're finally starting to show like some level of like progress. And I just feel like sometimes sports fans, it's not just limited to Dota fans. Saying so would be like kind of unjust, but I feel like sometimes sports fans are just way too, they're way too hasty, and then like teams react and players react to that because they want to chase immediate success. When
Yeah.
in reality, it takes time for good things to work out. It took us all of like fucking a year to figure it out. And when we figured it out, like we really figured it out. If I listened to people and kicked Boxy all the times I was told he was trash, and now he's like the best 4 in the world and everybody watches his replays, like
Yeah.
how many times I was told like in my DMs to kick Boxy or like you fucking trash, and I see people saying that like Boxy's just awful, like awful player, just doesn't understand, and then I know that they don't get that this guy's like he's a monster. Matu said that there was very few players he'd ever played with like Boxy. After the first season, I asked him and Zai like who they thought the best player was on our team, and they both said Boxy.
Damn. It's
So
that's quite the vote of confidence there for two extremely veteran and
yeah,
pretty much consistently high tier performers in
yeah.
Zai and Matu.
And I asked Matu to give his honest opinion on like all the players, after TI and like what he felt like they could improve on. And I mean, he said that Boxy's truly exceptional. He said Boxy's like one of one. He's never played with somebody. Maybe he said he's played with I mean, he's very finished, so he doesn't speak in absolutes, but
Yeah.
he said this might be one of the best players I've ever played with, bar none. Like the way that he played at TI, he said this guy's got no fear. He makes all the right calls. Like, he was so impressed. Um, so, I want to make sure that like people are given chances to grow and make mistakes. Was Boxy the perfect teammate when I first joined? No. I had to fight him every step of the way. Me and him fucking fought like cats and dogs. Like, I'd say, hey man, like, you're gonna wake up on time? Nope. Always fucking shows up late. Chloe would have to lie to him about what time our stuff was, and she would tell him 30 minutes early so that like
That's a classic when somebody just isn't gonna show up on time, so you tell them 15 minutes or 30 minutes prior. Yeah.
yeah, it's like that was real and that was a real fight, and sometimes I'd want to fucking like it was so frustrating. We had this thing on our team where you'd have to buy Five Guys if we were late, and it was supposed to humble. Like you just buy a meal for everybody else, like you go out and get it yourself, and it just never phased him enough. And he would just argue about having to like buy food for us, and I'd be like, well then don't be fucking late. And we'd fight all the time, and then now he's perfect. He never shows up late. He's actually so good about it. And he was really bad at times with his four, and now he's like the fucking best player in the world. So I remember at TI when I asked other players about Boxy, they all called him bad, like most of them. And it was
Oh,
like it
really?
was so weird that the perception of what we felt like he was versus like what they thought he was like so different.
That is super interesting because I always feel like and I think this is generally a problem in some ways when it comes to broadcasting and Dota. I think it's very hard for talent to make hard judgments on player performances because we simply don't know.
Yeah.
And
But it wasn't just you
I'm
guys, it
very
was like
hesitant, but
it was
it's not just like
players.
even
Yeah,
even
just
other
players.
player playing against them, and they don't actually have a good read of like who is actually good and bad.
Yeah, part of it is I think because a lot of the times I heard from these people, and I asked a lot of people, I want to say like 10 people plus about Boxy. And a lot of
Mhm.
them, and I told them this to motivate them. I didn't out anybody, but I was just like, yo, like they think you're trash. Um, and that really made Matu especially want to win because he's like, are these guys stupid? Like, are they watching like the same stuff I am? He said it doesn't even come down to communication. He's just like, he makes the correct plays.
Mhm.
But a lot of it came down to like I think a lot of the newer generation of players often like look at MMR as a benchmark.
Sure.
And I'm not saying MMR doesn't matter. Of course it does, but I think they sometimes are a little bit overly invested. Like I talked to a Ford player about like who they watch and stuff, and they were telling me all these names, and they were all like top 4, top 5. I heard a lot of Save, a lot of Soxa and stuff, and they're great players, but I was like, "Oh, what do you think about Boxy?" And he's like, "Well, can I speak frankly?" And I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "I just don't think he's very impressive." And I was like, "Okay, no worries."
All right.
So
So
yeah,
I've got two different directions I want to go with that previous conversation.
shoot.
And I think I'll start with the okay. So Matama Man had a hard time playing the regular season. OG notoriously were all about like like we don't really treat the regular season like they're not really try harding for most of that. They're saving it all for TI sort of thing.
Yeah.
There has always been talks about saving quote unquote strats, which I'm not sure if that's ever really been a thing, but like at least the concept of saving things for TI. In a recent interview, Kuro was talking about how like the DPC season and stuff, it's been tough for the old dogs. And it's a lot of the newer kids who are like finding success. And he says this system is just hard. It's hard for us.
Uh-huh.
What are your thoughts on that? Because it seems like you did get a pretty good, uh, pretty in detail of like Matu's strengths and weaknesses in that
Mhm.
regard, and it sounds similar to like the puppies or Kuros and stuff. And how do
Yeah.
you view like that whole concept?
Well, I don't disagree, and I do think it is harder for the older tier players. I think part of it is that like if you put Kuro in a LAN right now, I'm sure he'd win like a lot. Not win the LAN, but like I think he'd be a plus EV player. Like he'd get you wins at a LAN.
Yeah.
Like if you took this current Nigma and I saw them on LAN, I would be genuinely like worried. Because I think like these guys definitely show up and when the stakes are better. But at the same time, like while I respect that and I think it's really cool, and I absolutely have no doubt that if like everything was played on LAN, they would own. And if but you know, back in the day you were given a lot of direct invites to stuff.
Hmm.
And you took that for granted, and now I feel like you have to adapt. It's not anybody else's fault, right? Ultimately speaking, like you can hate the system for what it is, and uh, you know, but at some point, like it is what it is. It's been this way for 2 years, so it's probably going to continue. Do I think it's ideal? I don't know about that. I haven't really thought about it too much, but like you kind of have to adapt to the conditions given to you. Um, and so like while I have sympathy and I think like yeah, it fucking sucks sometimes for the older set of players, I'm sure. Uh, it's part of like it is how it is.
Yeah, and you just
So
gotta be able to adjust. You do think
yes,
it's not really an excuse, right? It's just like that's kind of what they were molded by, and now
yeah,
they do have to adapt. It's
they have to
adapt or
adapt.
die.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, again, like if you're Kuro, you're probably just like, holy fuck, these like endless like shit games that I have to play, just suck ass. Like, I'm sure he's not having fun, but at the same time, like, gotta fucking win.
All right, and
So
then the since it seems like Matu was much of the heart of the team, both like the negatives and the positives, and how he affected the team, how he was able to get them over the finishing line when it came to TI, and got you guys like that really high placement. Who is now that? Who is driving the culture now on Liquid in that regard? Because you say everybody's like a lot more in tune, everybody's more hardworking. Like I'm sure some of that comes down to maturity and character growth and stuff, but I also think like general work culture or team culture, I guess in this regard, is a big factor. Who's really driving that this time?
I would say that it's probably a combination of people. I'd say probably the biggest person is probably Aiden Insania. He's probably the person in the world that like you just never have to worry about like doing the wrong thing. If that makes sense. Like I think he's always gonna try his absolute best. He's always gonna fucking grind. He's always gonna like tell people. At TI, he was really. I think like if Matu was like our driving force, I think Aiden's like positivity and just how he presented himself and how he like took a lot of stuff was just like it's kind of irreplaceable. For
Hmm.
example, um, during the TI run, there were certain times where because he was drafting in the past and he was like not drafting anymore, it was Matu. He would sometimes get really excited, and he would like say a lot of stuff, and we would tell him calm down like a little bit. And like I must have told this guy to like I must have criticized him a billion times at TI. And I think one day he snapped at me, but aside from that, he just took it and like he just held his head high and he's like, it's all good. I'm gonna do whatever it takes for the team to like succeed. I probably just pushed him a little bit too far. I think that was my own fault.
Hmm.
I just kept giving him criticism instead of like balancing it. Because Aiden's the type of person that like you can say a billion bad things to, but you do have to be like, hey, you did a really good job with this, and then he's gonna be fine. But I was really. I mean, I'm just kind of a shitty coach sometimes, and I'm trying to learn too. Um, and I always like overestimate his emotional, like bandwidth because it's usually so fucking high. Um, and so, but for the most part, like if you take a guy and you just criticize him nonstop, and he just like takes it, and he does a good job of pointing out his own flaws at all times. I cannot remember a single time where Aiden has blamed somebody else before he blamed himself. Like in this entire part of this team, actually, there
That
have been
is
times.
impressive because Dota is a game
Yeah, I
that
mean,
really makes you want to blame other people.
yeah, there are times where, of course, he'll flame like people on our team and say like, "Oh, this guy griefed me" or something. But he'll always bring up himself first. He'll say like, "Oh, if I had just done this, we could have won. If I had just done this, and if I was a little bit better about this, we could have won." And he always says that, and he always brings it up. And I really feel like, when you have a guy like that that works like that, and that's the example, because he's the oldest person on the team aside from myself, and he's always setting that example, being like, "It's on me first." It trickles down so hard. When you're the fucking guy Aiden is the fucking man. He brought all of us together, and he's always the first person to point out his own flaws. And like, then I think it's really easy for everybody to be pretty humble about things and have some level of humility. And I do think it rubs off on all of us extensively. And when you see him do it even at TI, which is like the highest stakes, nobody felt worse about the misclick than Aiden did. There's not enough teasing in the world that you can do that makes him feel worse than he like made himself feel about the moment. About every single moment that we've had on our team, his always thought is like, what could I have done better? What should I have done differently? And yeah, I think that's probably like our replacement for Heart and Soul. In terms of like what I think has the most passive effect that none of us realize, it's almost certainly Aiden. It's probably not even like close in that regard.
And
So
it is eight. Who is considered the captain of Liquid?
in my mind, I make the most plans still with Aiden.
Sure.
We still probably talk about stuff the most. I mean, the button clicking and all that jazz is Zai, but it's kind of fluid, honestly.
Sure. And so that's where I was going to lead to, because we talked about how Matu was a big shot caller. He was big heart and soul of the team. And I remember asking you, like, well, then, like, that's a pretty big loss. You're
Yeah,
replacing him with Nisha, who is not
he's so
notorious
quiet.
for being a over communicator or a
Yeah,
leader, I assume.
yeah.
So in that regard, like, somebody on the team has to step up big time. And I think you said that Zai was going to have to be that person who stepped up more in that
Oh,
regard,
for sure,
because
for sure.
Nisha would not. He's almost an opposite of a replacement to Matamba Man in that regard.
Yeah, I
So
mean, the thing
how has
is,
that been?
at TI, everyone just shut the fuck up and chilled while me and Matu drafted.
Right.
And then, um, I'd say Boxy probably talked the most. And Aiden's biggest contribution was that he would always give us ideas before the game. Because I think sometimes like he gets super excited and he just wants to give us all his fucking ideas. And I think quiet actually makes Aiden a bit nervous. So
Mm.
like when things are really quiet, I think he's like, oh god, I gotta like it's too quiet, you know?
Yeah.
And then I think he gets a little bit in his head about it, but for the
That
most
actually
part,
is what makes him a good commentator as well. The
yeah,
need
of
to
course.
fill the void.
Of course. I mean, because he's such a naturally funny guy and just like
Yeah.
he's just really easy to get along with, and so like he naturally has that like he's just charismatic and he's an entertainer. So it's like it's a second nature. He can't not just say stuff.
Hmm.
Whether it's like a joke or like he's got to say something to like lighten up the mood, which I appreciate. At TI he'd always clown me for stuff, but it made the moment okay for me. But no, Zai's done an excellent job. I mean, I feel like he's taken a lot of the reins. I think he talks a lot more. He's a lot more involved. Um, I think he actively comes at me with ideas. The other day in our Discord chat, it's always been Aiden that's like, "What are ideas? What are ideas?" I mean, that's the best thing Aiden does too. Is that he always gives us ideas. They could be bad, they could be good, but they're just ideas. It gives you a starting point, which is really important. Sometimes they can
Yeah.
be bad, but they'll lead to other discoveries, which actually happened twice this season, which I don't want to elaborate on, but it's already happened twice. That have been pretty important.
I
And
think
so,
in general, team dynamics, like even not teams as in like sports teams, but like working teams, it's important to have a good mix of people who can come up with ideas, creators, and then critiquers who are able to come and take a pre-existing idea and make it more functional, and
mhm.
then people who are just executors, who
Yeah,
can
yeah,
like just roll with an idea and make it
yeah.
happen in
Those are like
reality.
the niches. That the last part is like Nisha and Mickey.
Right.
Whereas like Aiden is definitely an ideas guy, and then Zai and Boxy are definitely the people that make sure they're not like too insane.
Hmm.
But Zai's been doing a really good job. Like I feel like last year it was just Aiden that was prompting people saying like, "Oh, this hero's broken. We should try this." This hero's like good. And then this year, actually, I was trying to find like the message, but he told us all like, "By the way, I think these are the heroes we should try. So like, if you guys could play these heroes in pubs, just please like let me know how you feel." So in that regard, I think we're having a lot more discussions about heroes, and it's a promising sign because we just went like Giga this season, and we could just rest on our laurels. But this, Zai's trying to push and say like, I think these heroes are good. And Aiden posted it the other day. He was like, "Oh yeah, somebody told me about this. Like, what do you guys think?" And so, there's just always a constant influx of ideas. Nisha stays quiet at all times, doesn't say shit. So, kind of have to
Uh,
like wheedle stuff out of him. But
I guess I've never thought the image of Zai in my head and like the times that I've talked to him and stuff like that. He's kind of like a Renaissance man,
Mhm.
and that he just seems to be like all around good at everything. So I guess I've never thought about the aspect of him being a leader, and I assume he's never really been a leader on any of his previous teams. So is that true? Is this like a new role that he's
Yeah,
basically having to step into and develop?
I think it's pretty new for him. I don't can't imagine he's done this many times, but I mean he's super thriving. I mean the thing about Zai is that he commands respect.
Yes,
Uh,
he
he,
doesn't. He seems like the kind of person who doesn't like direct very much,
no,
but he does naturally just get respect just by existing in some
when
way.
he's annoyed, you respect that annoyance.
Mm,
Nobody's trying to make jokes or talk him out of things. I can't imagine a single time anybody's ever told Zai off on our team. It just doesn't really happen. Even Matu, I'd fuck with all the time. I'm still trying to fuck with Zai. You might see me on the camera call him like a fucking loser and shit. Because that's what I would do with Matu. I'm trying to become more natural, and I think Zai's kind of getting used to it. Because at
mm.
TI, my thing was to tell Matu that he was like the worst fucking player.
Yeah,
It'd always get him to smile. I say you're so fucking terrible, and I think of like new creative ways to say it. I'd be like, right before we're on stage against OG, I was like, "Hey man, I know I've made like a lot of jokes, and I just want to say like you're still fucking awful."
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, William. That never fails to fuck. Even though I know you at this point in time, and it's one of your like, that is your best, I think, gag that you have. It always fucking gets a laugh out of me. When you did that Quinn, I could see it coming a mile away, but it was still so fucking funny to me. It was like, yeah, no, in all seriousness, Quinn, you're still fucking trash or something like that. I
Yeah,
was just
exactly.
like, I could
That's
see
my
it
favorite
coming,
type of
but it
joke.
was still funny.
Yeah, is what I would do with Matu, and so I'm trying to like make things. I'm trying to liven Zai up a little bit, and I'm trying to find
Mm,
my Matu replacement dummy where I can just like call them dogs. I mean, I always do with a smile, and like they know I'm kidding. I don't do
yeah,
it when they're like at their lowest. I do it when they're at their highs, so that like it's hype. We
yeah, yeah.
stopped OG at TI, and then I thought it'd be funny to like drop it. You're fucking dog shit, bro.
Yeah, I
The
mean
best
it's
was after the Pudge game or the Lifestealer game against Thunder, and Matu was like, "I know, man, I was terrible that game." We're just fucking laughing.
yeah. I imagine it's both easy to come at Zai, but also hard to get. 'Cause I mean, he's pretty much just a Greek Adonis. So like,
Yeah,
how do you
yeah.
clown on him?
But he's funny. I mean, he makes fun of me all the fucking time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think things are getting more figured out. Because for me, if I'm gonna interact with Zai all the time, I need him to like crack a smile more, and he does. He does a good job of it. So
Yeah. All right. My last big question here is what's up with Nisha? Give me
oh,
the fucking lowdown on this kid.
so he's way funnier than you would expect. He's actually so funny. Whenever anything happens in Dota, he just calls it cringe. Whenever they gank him, he won't say anything. He won't like ping anybody. He'll just say fucking cringe. That's it. Like
Okay.
whenever he dislikes something, he's like, "Oh, that was so cringe." Cringe is like his favorite word.
Uh-huh.
Um, no, he smiles and laughs a ton. Whenever we play ping pong, it's so fucking funny. Like I'll whoop his ass, and then he'll say like, "All right, now's the time to start trying." And I'm like, "Dude, you're down like 30-0. Like, what do you mean now's the time to start trying?" He has a ton of personality. He's a huge memer. He fucking loves memes. He's got great comedic timing. Um, the other day we had media, and he's got the worst sleep schedule of all time. Like he'll fall asleep at like 8, and our media time was 9. Then it was like he woke up at 9, but he said he slept at 8:30. So he was like a zombie, but he still was just like fucking around. I think he probably relates to Mickey the most. They're adorable. I don't know if I think they always show on camera every single time something happens. They always fist bump, and they always hug after a game or fist bump. Really cute. He fits in really nicely. I think things are really really good uh, overall.
Why is it seems like he's coming out of his shell. I don't know if that's just like a lack of. Well, I know people have wanted to do interviews with him before, and like then we'd never be able to get an interview with him, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
he's doing post game interviews and all kinds of things. Is this just a natural like maturing thing? You think he's just like coming out of his shell just because new environment or something like that? What's going on with that?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people, I think the number one thing that gets passed around a lot, um, is two things. It's like one, that we are forcing him, or it's in his contract to do interviews or stream or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I can assure you it's not. He is doing it of his own volition. In fact, when we were negotiating him and stuff with him, I asked his brother about it because I was negotiating with his brother, and he's like, I think he's genuinely really excited to do it. He told me that maybe he's just at the right intersection of feeling comfortable with himself. It's a new environment. He wants to see if he can do things a little bit differently now. It has nothing to do bad about Secret. It's not like Secret was fucking preventing him or hiding him in a closet. I just think he was a little bit shyer, and I think he probably took some initiative this time. He's getting a little bit older. I mean, in the past, it was his first team, probably pretty sheltered. I think Matt and them probably did a really good job of making sure he just focused on Dota and he didn't have to like be nervous or get caught up in the social media shit. This guy doesn't have a Twitter. We just told him how to retweet the other day. Um,
That's adorable.
it's not like it's me on his phone going through his shit and tweeting for him. He'll
Yeah,
ask
yeah,
Zai for advice more than anything. He'll say like, "You think this is a banger?" And Zai say, "Yeah, it's pretty funny." Um, and so yeah, I think he was just at that point now where he's probably coming out of his shell a little bit, uh, and sort of just kind of going with the flow and seeing what it feels like to be a little bit more out there and seeing
oh,
that
that
people really like him. And yeah, uh, so yeah, we're not forcing him. Sometimes I kind of force him by saying like, "Yo, like you want to stream once?" He'll be like, because he's pretty. How do I say it? Like he's not the most uh ambitious person when it comes to waking up and being go getter. Like I'm gonna fucking do this today. So sometimes you have to
yeah.
prod him a little bit and say, "Hey man, we have an off day. Do you want to stream?" Or "Hey, Max is streaming, and do you want to just like go up and do an interview?" And you'll say, "Yeah, for sure, let's do it." It's never a fight. He just says, "Okay." Once you ask him to do something, he's like, "All right, let's go."
Yeah, he's just one of those people he's down to do things, but not necessarily an initiator of
Yeah,
sorts.
exactly. He's not going to be the person that volunteers and say, "I'd love to do the next interview." But you
Yeah, yeah,
ask
yeah.
him, you're like, "Hey, are you interested in doing the interview?" He'll say, "Yeah, sure. I don't mind."
That
Uh,
that makes a lot of sense to me because I think the way I saw it was new team, new environment. I think that's a perfect opportunity to reinvent yourself. I think when you go through that a period of like the classic is going from high school to college, right? It's a chance. Nobody knows you presumably when you go to college, or what maybe it's a workforce or something. For me, it was military, right? You get a chance to reinvent who you are. You got
yeah,
stuck in like sort of a role of sorts in high school, but like now, new environment, you can be a whole new person if you want to. So
yeah,
that does make sense that like this has just provided him an opportunity to do things that he's probably just thought about in his head, but never really got the chance to do just because you kind of just settle into roles and positions.
yeah. I mean, take a look at myself. When I was in high school, I was a fucking loser. When I was in college, I was an even bigger loser. And now, 10 years later, I'm still a fucking loser, but
Well, you're
now I
the
get paid
biggest
to be a
loser.
loser.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
sick.
You-
Okay, one of the funniest rumors I actually heard. One of the talent told me, and I won't say who, that somebody had told them that we pay Nisha 50,000 a month to like, and I was like,
God
what?
damn.
You think we pay 50,000 a month? That was one of the most outrageous things I've ever heard in my life. And that person told me that they were pretty confident because they heard it from a very reliable source. I was like, motherfucker, I'm the most reliable source. I negotiated that contract. Like, fuck me. If we're paying Nisha 50, like, I better be getting at least 25. Like, Blitz Dota better be the fucking, like, king of the world.
Yo,
Jesus
William, you
Christ.
you guys got any open positions on Liquid? And
Yeah,
also,
seriously.
I would like to negotiate with you for my
I
contract as
see. You know
well.
what the funniest thing was? When we hired Jerax, I got people out of the woodwork coming to message me. We got 5 or 6 people asking if we needed a second manager. Uh,
They're like, shit, they must have
yeah, it
fucking
was so fucking
oodles of
weird.
cash. I mean, they're just hiring like fucking 10 different support staff.
Yeah, it's like fucking weird. Okay, I'm not even kidding. I got maybe, and this is without exaggerating, I would say 6 or 7 messages from people that said that they would coach in anything. One dude was like, "I'll be a chef." One guy said, "I'll be a personal trainer." A few people said that they would just run data for us. I was like, "What do you jab stuff?" Like, dude, we're not just some like halfway house charity. You have to like bring something to the table. But the amount of people that asked if we needed a second, third, fourth, I was like, whew.
William, it's kind of cringe to dox me right now just because I didn't work the third season. You know, I was kind of desperate. You know, you
For
could have
sure,
just.
for sure. It was nuts though. There's very few people I would bring on as an addition. I think it's like Jesse was perfect. Our team would take Jesse back in a second. We already offered Jesse a slot for TI.
Oh, if he wants to, like upcoming TI. So if he wants to come back,
Yeah, he said absolutely no chance, but
absolutely no chance. Wow, that's
100% of the shots you don't take, something miss.
Let's see. Let's see. Have you talked to him since? What's he up to?
I don't know. He said he's just kind of figuring his life out. So he said he's just seeing what's going on, seeing what's happening with his life. Said that he would just take a little bit of time for himself, and I think that's perfectly fair. He's just figuring out a little bit of life and just seeing what's ahead of him. There's nothing bad about that. He's made a lot of money and he's young enough where he can do stuff.
I mean, I cannot possibly fathom living in a world where, like, he's younger than me, but like at my age, having basically accomplished my dream and being very well like financially set off. But like the more important part would be like accomplishing my dream. Like what's left after that, I guess, in some way. You know, like
Yeah.
professionally speaking wise, like that's got to be definitely quite the journey of like figuring out, you know, what you want to do next.
And I hope, honestly, I hope he stays away. Because I think in some ways, if your default is always to come back to this game, you're never really going to find out the answers to that.
Yeah.
So I hope the best for Jesse. He's never going to listen to this podcast ever because he doesn't consume any Dota content. But he's such a good guy, and I hope he knows how I feel about him at all times.
I always respect people who can who find like after achieving a grand amount of success, go on to be successful in some other career, even though they don't have to. There was a pitcher for the Seattle Mariners.
Yeah.
I forgot it. Randy Johnson. That was
Oh,
his
I know
name.
him. When he killed like the dove or some shit.
yes. He killed a dove. He was well known for his fastball. He was one of like he was one of like the fastest pitchers. Anyway, he is apparently now a sports photographer. So
sick.
now he's actually behind the scenes, taking shots where he used to be, in front of the camera. And yeah, that's his full on career now, which I thought
sick.
was super interesting. And
I'm looking at his photography right now. Although his website's not loading, so. Oh, now it is. Oh my god, he takes 6 photos. Go him.
Yeah.
His logo is a dead bird. That's so funny.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's straight up that bird he killed.
That's fucking great.
Yeah, it's fucking sick. No,
I
really hope
being able to
Jesse
find
finds
the
that.
motivation and drive to like,
Yeah.
succeed in some other field like that. Pretty cool.
I mean, I just enjoy Dota, and I've kind of come to terms with, sometimes I really think that there's only one life for us, and sometimes I get worried that like I'm not doing enough or I'm not going to be happy enough with what I chose, and I'm so afraid that like in my 60s and stuff I'll have regrets and be like, could have been a lawyer, could have done this, could have done that, but like not every life is meant to change the entire world. Sometimes I could just remember that I can be happy and that I'm enjoying myself right now, and I don't have to think so far in the future about like anything that I do. Right now I enjoy Dota, and it doesn't have to be much more than, and I don't have to like stress or panic. So I still continue to enjoy it, and I'll probably still continue to do it for a little bit, but um personally speaking, it'll be hard when I have to eventually move. And that time is coming sooner than later for me in terms of coaching. Gotta have some backup plans.
I haven't actually talked to you about this, but I do have the general feeling that you're only going to be coaching for another year or two, and that's kind of in my head what I imagine is going on with you. Is this
Yeah.
is that Is that true? Is this a sort of like I want to win TI first thing? Like what's going
I
on with
definitely
that?
want to. The thing is, I no longer. This sounds really bad, but winning TI is no longer the highest priority in my life like it used to be. I just want to have a good time with the friends that I have,
Mhm.
and I want to make a lot of memories. And of course, winning is a good way to do that, and that is still like my priority. It's not going to determine my happiness to the level that it used to. Because I feel like getting third at TI it's a good accomplishment, right? There's very few
Yeah.
people that have done it, and you're making a really deep run in a tournament filled with superstars, and you should be happy. And at the time when I wanted to do stuff, I felt like I always wanted to do stuff to prove people wrong, and it was always for the wrong reasons. I'd say like, oh, once I get this, I'm gonna fucking like rub it in their faces. And nowadays, I'm really trying to just be okay with me and be happy and exist for myself, um, and just be happy with myself. And part of that is like accepting that the results might not come, and that's okay. That won't determine the rest of my life. And that this is just like a small snapshot of like what'll happen in my life. And I don't want wins or losses to determine like my ultimate happiness at all times like it used to. So if I win TI, if I don't win TI, like I'll have some regrets, sure, but I'll be okay. It'll be all right, regardless of what happens. I'm really lucky because I get to work with people that I really care about and that love me and like are just good people to be around. I feel like so many people in life get shafted because they just don't get to work with very nice people. And so like they're at the shit end of the spectrum at all times, because it's just like, oh, fuck me. I have to like work with this asshole and it's so unpleasant and life is so unfair because this one guy ruins my life. I don't have that in my life. I'm so lucky because every single day that I work, I get to wake up in the morning. I get to see, I get to see Jabs, who's one of my best friends in the world and like my fucking brother. I would actually take a bullet for that guy. Every single day he improves me as a person. There's like so many things that I learned from him, even though it was supposed to be the other way around. And how many jobs give you that opportunity, right? To like really actively learn from your coworkers and like not just be a better coach and like professionally and stuff, but being a better person. There's probably
Yeah, there's
very
a lot,
few.
there's a lot of people who their coworkers make them become shittier people
Yeah.
because
Aiden once told me that like sometimes I'm not the easiest person in the world to talk to because I'm so dead set on my own beliefs and views. And I really took that to heart and I really like try to be more open with him and like take his perspective more. And that's somebody that cares about me because they care enough to tell me a hard truth. And
Mm,
most of your coworkers in life, they won't because it's hard to have those kinds of conversations. But Aiden's willing to tell me that and really like open up some wounds to like get me to be a better person. And Jabs is like, hey man, like you can just trust me. If something's bothering you, just like talk to me and like open up more. And I think you probably recognize it in our friendship too, that I'm a lot more open about things, about how I feel about you too. I'll say like, hey man, you really mean a lot to me. I probably learned a lot about that from Jabs, just like getting to be a better human being at all times. And Matu and Jesse taught me to like exist within myself and not care so much about what other people think or say and just kind of enjoy yourself.
mhm.
So that's my priority in life nowadays, which probably isn't the best thing for Liquid Tier because they're like, oh, our coach doesn't care about winning. Like, of course I care about winning. That's my livelihood and what continues this. But at the same time, like, is it the overwhelming objective in my life? No, it's just to try and be happy and try to understand the things that make me happy and advance that forward little by little.
Well, and ideally, in the perfect world, becoming a better person would help you be a better coach
Yeah,
and
of
to help
course, of
your team
course.
win
I
TI.
mean, I
We'll see
think
if
it
that actually
does.
comes true. But
I mean, look at the loyalty that these guys have for me too, because they know that I really care about them and their careers as well. I
yeah,
think if you talk to Max about me, you would say the same things, I would hope, because I would always say, I would try and take care of him as if he was one of my own always. So, and I'm trying to make sure that like that's the way that I do business, and I don't really want to compromise on that anymore.
mm,
So, we stuck with Boxy even when he had to take that break, and that obviously wasn't great for us competitively, but everyone fucking made that choice, and they fucking did it without a moment's hesitation because of what he was going through at the time. There was no fucking hesitation at all. Like, are we gonna keep Sumel, so we have a better chance at TI? Or like, are we gonna let Boxy in like we said we would? Everybody fucking said, are you out of your mind? Of course we're gonna take Boxy. Like that shit brings me to tears, knowing that like my team understands that that was more important than like whatever short term success that we were gonna have with Sumel, who obviously was a great player and like it wasn't really his fault. He was in a shitty situation. But like that level of loyalty, I'll never forget in my lifetime. That'll be the thing that really, even more than our third place TI run, is that when somebody needed us, we were there for them back. And those moments are like what define you as a human being, not whether or not like we win TI. I'll remember when Aiden told me that like what Boxy says goes. Like if he wants to fucking play, he's playing. I don't care how rusty he is, how shitty he is. Like fucking run it. You know, we said we'd fucking do it. We're gonna do it. Like there was no hesitation. There was just fucking determination. Obviously, we didn't make it to TI that year, but look at how fucking well this guy now played at TI. You know, we got third place because of this guy's efforts. That fucking meant something. And life's usually not that nice, and it doesn't reward you in that way. And it could have gone the other way where we didn't, you know, even get through last chance, but we fucking didn't. So it had a nice happy ending, and everyone gets to go home with like a smile on their face.
Yeah, it's nice to know that sometimes when you put good out in the world, it does come back. And
Of
you
course.
guys are definitely a great example of that.
I mean, Seb told me at ESL Stockholm, he said, I'll never forget this. We were playing Mafia, and I was just talking to Seb, and I was like, man, it's such a fucking hard year. You know, we just keep sucking when it comes to these lands and stuff. And then he was like, hey, man, you know, you guys are doing the right things. I know what you're doing. Like, you're really trying your best to, like, you know, do things the right way. Like, the wins might not come to you, like, right this second. And you might not even win in the ways that you expect. You know, you might not win in Dota, but, you know, you guys are winning in life, and that stuff will come back to you at some point. And I really appreciated that. That really kept me going for a long time. When he was just like, you know, just keep doing you. Life rewards you in the ways that like you never really expect, and you'll just like get better about stuff. So I really
That's really
appreciated
cool.
that. Yeah, I really appreciated that. In that moment, like those guys, I take a lot of inspiration from the OG guys. I feel like they do things the right way. Seb, Notel, you know, I don't really talk to Notel as much as I'd like, but Seb especially, he's been such a big inspiration. Because I feel like as much of a shithead as he was in the past, and like you know now I feel like he's a fucking mature boss. And when I say
Yeah.
like shithead in the past, you know what I mean. Like I
Yeah,
always
yeah.
liked him, but his internet personality was like abrasive for some people. But I
Yeah,
always liked
his
him. So
pubbing personality was not great.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it is what it is.
Yeah. And it's, sadly the bad moments are always going to get spread around and memed far more than the good moments. So
Yeah, yeah. So
not everybody gets that that full picture, the complexity
mm,
of who people are. I just only hear about what's kind of the most popular thing, which is usually negative.
yeah, I really, you know, and on that note, I really appreciated like everything Kuro and uh Puppy said during their interviews and stuff like that. I thought their like responses to losing were so fucking mature. Because I
Oh
really
yeah,
think that's how
those were
you.
great interviews. If
Yeah,
anybody's listening hasn't seen those, go out of your way to watch the
I mean,
season 1 interviews with Puppy and Crow.
I enjoyed memeing it up, but those probably mattered more. The shit with Quinn was so fucking funny though. I don't regret that at all.
That was a very funny moment.
I think Liquid probably didn't think it was very liquid. You know, I was just fucking going
This is
in.
not
It
very
wasn't
on
really
brand
on
for
brand.
us,
Yeah,
William.
exactly. But I was like, fuck it. You know, I'm gonna fucking send it. Quinn's a good sport. He's gonna appreciate this, and I'm just gonna
Yeah,
have fun
Quinn's
now.
like the perfect person, at least when it comes to your competitors within EU. He's like
Yeah,
one of the only guys you could do something like that with.
yeah. So now, as I get closer to the end, I just want to have fun. And Quinn's a good guy to have fun with because he just like doesn't give a shit. So why should I? You know, just
Yeah.
enjoy myself. I hate when people are like waiting for Quinn or me to lose now because we fucking had some like very light, gentle banter where both of us enjoyed it. Now it's
Yeah.
like, can't fucking wait till they get humbled. Like, bro, you know, like just let people just enjoy life a little bit. It's still harmless, you know. We're just
Yeah.
flaming each other, and I'm sure they'll beat us in the season. I'm positive of that because it's how Dota works. And he's gonna go in, and I'll fucking take it on the chin, and I'll smile, and I'll enjoy it, and nobody has to be mad for me, you know.
Oh yeah. If if they end up beating you guys whenever, if Quinn does not end up on the post game interview, then somebody has done something horrifically wrong.
Yeah, they fucked up
Yeah.
because
That
Quinn needs
man's
to
gonna
go in
talk
at
some.
me.
He's gonna talk some talk.
I fucking hope he does too. I hope Quinn
Yeah.
fucking goes up there, calls me a fucking trash can and a reject. Like I hope he really just like picks up the ball and runs with it. You know, scores 50 touchdowns on my head. I hope that man does victory laps on my fucking grave. I hope he curses my bloodline. Tells me that like I can name my future son Quinn because he's their father. Like, I hope that man really just fucking takes me to town because I'll enjoy it. I'll fucking smile on my face.
Yeah. All right, William. You got anything else?
Nah, this was fun. I enjoyed this. Our season's
Yeah,
been a
me too.
blast. I hope everybody had a good time watching it. I know you couldn't watch it because you're fucking stuck in Southeast Asia. Not saying stuck as though that's like a bad thing. That makes
Yeah,
it sound
just
like way worse.
watch
Being in Southeast Asia.
being in Southeast Asia and trying to watch European games is
Yeah, it's just not
it's
gonna happen.
probably one of the worst regions for that. Especially for me, because I get jet lagged and then I wake up with the sun. So when your guys' games are like 3 a.m., there's no fucking way I'm watching that.
Who's like the shit in C? Who do I gotta watch out for at the major?
Execration were the ones who went out on top. I'll be honest, I'm not sure if you actually have to worry about them. Because all the C games, you saw our average game time was something like 45 minutes. Like we were by far the region that had the longest games. Dota is just like the Dota has been very messy. And Execration got bopped by I don't remember who. It was like Geek Slate or somebody. It was like two 25-minute games. So I mean maybe Execration will actually fill that hole, but they're very inconsistent when it
I
comes
see.
to that
Fucking
performance.
March, man. Koreans run the world.
Yeah, I mean maybe March can actually fix that part of the game, and then they'll actually be really solid. But right now it feels like they've got a huge hole in that
I
regard.
fucking love March. He's such a boss.
Yeah,
He's like
he
the
is a
nicest
beast.
guy. He only ever roots for other people's successes. You know
Yeah,
how fucking rare that is in this world?
yeah.
Even if
I
we're
would
competitors, he
actually
just roots
say
for me to
the
win.
scarier team is Geek Slate.
March and Sunby, those are my boys for life.
Yeah.
I take pride in like watching Koreans do well. I want them to do well.
Yeah, you've got Dubu now in Southeast Asia too.
Yeah, I love Dubu. He came
Yeah.
up to us at the TI after party. He
Mhm.
said, "Oh, I was with Tofu. You just fucking ignored me." He was like, "Tofu, all my fans say that you're the hottest Dota player." And then he was just like, who's your like ideal woman? He's like, "Tofu, like who do you find like who would entice you? If a fan was trying to like be with you or something."
Uh-huh.
And then Tofu was like, "Yeah, I'm not really sure." He's being very like he's aware that he's got a camera and he's kind of drunk with me. And then he
Yeah, yeah.
said, and then he doesn't really answer. And then Dubu was like, "Let me describe my perfect woman." She's like, "She's beautiful. She's smart. She's my wife. You fucking losers." And then he just left. I was like, "What the fuck?" It was so
God
fucking
damn,
funny.
that's a Chad move right there.
Yeah,
Holy
he was
fuck.
like, "It's my fucking wife. You fucking losers." I was like, "Okay, Dubu, go on, King. You fucking owned us. You can find the bot
Uh,
of that. That was a real. That's exactly how that happened." He was just like, "You fucking losers. I've got a wife and you don't." I was like, "Okay."
well, wait, this was on camera. Like, what was this exactly?
There's a TI after party. You just decided to fucking stream it. Fucking little clown.
Oh,
Fucking
goddamn.
funny as hell. Funny as fuck, dude.
But yeah, I would say Geek Slate just because they've got some relatively young talent. I think their offlaner Forces a beast. They've got the Hustler, that Mongolian player who was playing on C teams and European teams. Now he's on Geek Slate,
I see.
and I mean that guy was pretty good when he was on 200 ping playing on European teams or
Mhm.
whatever. So
Oh, that's sick. But Fnatic just like fucking shit the bed. Who else was it? What happened to fucking Boom? They have like X Nova and shit, right?
yeah, I don't know, man. Both of those teams. I mean, Fnatic, I kind of get. I definitely didn't expect Boom to fucking fall apart. I think honestly, their change of players. Maybe it's just leadership wise, they just fucking lost out because Skim's the one on Geek Slate.
Yeah.
So I think he was probably a huge factor in their success from a shot calling perspective because he was playing
I see.
support for them, and so
Okay, that makes sense. Hold on, let me just load up the other. regions.
Fnatic just like kind of look like ass. To be
That's
honest,
unfortunate.
just none of their
I like
players are really like.
DJ's so sick, and KP is. I like KP a lot. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah. Feels like KP's like maybe his playstyle or something just doesn't really fit. They're still doing like kind of weird KP heroes for him, and it's
see.
not really working. I think I mean I don't want to go too far on this because you know, I've been spending a whole lot of time with the C fans in chat, and Gabby does not look great.
I see.
The fans
Just
are
having a
tearing
tough time.
him a fucking new one, man. They want
see.
him out and never to play professionally ever again. But
Oh damn, they're just like, dude, you need to get a new fucking job.
I mean, you remember like whenever it came to watching C games, those fans are goddamn. They are always the most savage. They are
For sure.
absolutely brutal.
What maybe this is a bit controversial, but did the fucking like did what's his name? The dude on SMG, did he ever say anything about the whole situation?
Oh, yeah. Well, he didn't really. So he did a long form interview with Avo. They did do content in that regard, and I think I watched the full interview, and Avo never explicitly asked about it. But they did talk about mid one's ambitions and stuff like that. So I do think that if you watch that interview, there's maybe like some allusions, like he alludes to it maybe a little bit in the regards of like what his motivations are and like how he's pushing himself and his team. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah,
but he doesn't really like talk about
no
his like thought process or anything like that.
No. We had Ninja Boogie on the panel all the time.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I was like, wasn't it fucking awkward when he had to do like interviews and stuff? Did he say anything?
There was one time where they did win, and Ninja Boogie was on the panel, and I know Ninja Boogie was prepped for if Midwan showed up for the post game interview, but he was not the one who ended up doing it. I think it was Moon.
I see.
But
okay, weird guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. That shit's so weird to me. Because the thing is, I don't think Ninja Boogie like, or Mid-One's like a bad guy. I know a lot of people that have teamed with him that have nothing but nice things to say. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm not saying like Ninja Boogie's experience is invalid or anything like that, but it'd be fucking good to know like what the fuck happened there.
Yeah.
Because it just sounds like wild.
When everything that you hear about the guy seems like, oh, he seems decent, and then something like that comes along where it's like, okay, that is
it's just so out of the ordinary.
You want to know what his side of the story is, because
just so fucking weird.
Frank, I don't think there is a side of the story that it like absolves him entirely.
No, not at all. But I just want to know like the halfway point of like, listen, I'm a fucking dumbass, but here we go. Like. I mean, what he did was fucked.
What the fuck were you thinking? Yeah.
Yeah, but like, what was the thought process here? Like,
yeah,
you know, you just decide that like crack was like your fucking drink of choice. Did you think like?
Yeah. Well, he stayed in the upper division, so.
Yeah, just fucking wild.
It's better than what it started out to be. It looked like he was going down to lower division with Fnatic. So
fucking Ninja Boogie like preying on his downfall every night.
Yeah, a little bit, for sure.
Where were you guys again?
Ninja Boogie was pretty funny. We were in Kuala Lumpur.
Okay.
Ninja Boogie as talent was actually probably the standout for me.
So you guys are in Malaysia. You know how like at like 5 a.m. they do like the fucking
call to prayer.
Yeah, it's like, you know, Ninja Boogie wakes up and he's like, please smite this motherfucker. Get him out of here.
He's not religious at all, but he's still praying his goddamn soul out.
He's waking up at 5:45 a.m. every day. Please take this man out. No, but I respect that he's like still willing to do the region and like just fucking, you know, he has professionalism and stuff like that because it can't be easy.
Yeah. There were definitely some moments where I I definitely was like, oh man, he's not over it, but he was entertaining all the same, and that's I think that actually adds a little bit of edge, to the broadcast when it's like some real emotions, but you're still able to be entertaining. Makes the whole product more authentic.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, C was good. I had a great time.
Good. I mean, everybody you worked with was also super nice.
Yeah,
So
I mean, except Abo. That guy's a piece of
yeah, I understand that. Fuck that dude, dumbass.
Yeah, but everybody else was great.
Oh, what happened in Div 2 today? I was out all day, so I didn't even get to see.
Alliance lost, and Ancient Tribe lost. The two qualifier teams won. Which
Okay.
I mean, maybe it will be competitive and stuff, but I honestly just assumed that this means that I kind of assumed that the winners of today's matches are going to be number 1 and number 2.
Wait.
That's kind of how I looked at it because
Rito Thunders
yeah. So
and
OT and
Monaspa.
Monaspa. Yeah, because I figure it's like the way I look at it is those two
It looks on
teams and
OT.
Alliance and Ancient Tribe were like the 4 teams vying for first and second. So I kind of assumed that, I mean, when you already have taken down one of the teams, you're in a really good spot.
Yeah. What? Let me just look at Alliance's draft real fast. I just want to know what happened here. I thought for sure they were good. Like Alliance, they've got a lot of talent. They've got good players. Like
Did you guys
S4 is the king.
Did you guys scrim Alliance at all?
No, I don't think so. Their
Like,
timing was probably different.
Yeah, I know you guys scrimmed EG or
Shopify,
whatever. Yeah. Did you guys scrim any Div 2 teams in that prep?
Oh, let me actually give me a second. I can help you
Yeah.
out here and just tell you straight up who we played.
Okay.
I mean, that's not really confidential info, right? Just not results or anything. It's just who we played.
The fact that you played,
Who we
especially now
physically
that the
played,
season is over. Yeah.
I think we played Water Rune Enjoyers once.
Oh, okay.
They're Div 2, right?
Yep. Yeah.
We played Water Rune Enjoyers, and then aside from that, it looks like we just played Div 1 teams.
Okay.
We played a lot against Tundra, Entity, Shopify, and Bedboom. Actually, our Bedboom
I was going to ask if you guys played
funniest.
against Bedboom, because that was always the thing, right? Western Europe would play
Yeah,
Eastern Europe and
it's
such.
so fucking funny. Like,
And
I mean, I think it doesn't really matter, but like we just trade stomps. They stomp us, we stomp them. Like in the best of 2, yeah, game 1 they always stomp us, then game 2 we stomp them, and just keeps going in a circle. So it'll be really fun to see like, what ends up happening on LAN. They're obviously really fucking good. Like they're not going to be easy to prepare for or play against.
No, that team seems crazy fucking stacked. I would have loved to see them in Western Europe just because I feel like their competition in Eastern Europe is not particularly
No, it's not
strong.
that hard.
Yeah.
But I really think that they'll be good. I know everyone's saying like, oh, but as soon as they play one game on LAN and they lose, which might be fucking true, but might just fucking be not, and they might just be fucking great, win all the time.
Yeah.
So you never really fucking know about these things. It's hard to tell. The TI moments weren't great, but it is what it is. Save's a beast. Their team's really good. Pure's like 40k MMR or some shit. You never really know with these things.
I think there was an interview recently that I read, and one of the things was GBK, I think, said that he took time to after TI to like work more on his mental than like he didn't actually play that much Dota and focus more on
motherfucker finally fixed his only flaw. We're done for.
So we'll see how much you can put in the work. It doesn't mean you fix the problem, but
yeah,
it's a good start. It's a good start.
I saw Dondo survived NA as well for one season.
Yeah, you did.
Good for him. My girlfriend is the biggest Dondo fan, so
really? I didn't
hope
know that.
that works out for him. I mean,
I
he's not harming anybody. He's just trying to fucking make his dream happen. Like, how do you hate on somebody for doing that?
Yeah, I mean, the only hate that I'll have towards Dendy is he's given way too much of a good name to the NA server. This motherfucker over here is validating USC's matchmaking, and I will not stand for it.
That's
Right?
absolutely a mistake, Dondo.
That like this
Your
motherfucker
positivity
has so much
knows no
goodwill.
bounds. Like,
Yeah, like
if
this
there's
guy
one
thinks-
server to flame.
This guy shows up and he's playing with like, top 100 NA players, and he's a fucking legend and a super nice guy. Like, I have no doubt he is affecting, the actual matchmaking and performance in that regard. He said, the only time it's bad is if I get like below, 500 rank.
Mhm.
And I'm like, motherfucker, that's where I live. Like, you're up here like 2 blocks down. You're saying the neighborhood's fucking great. And meanwhile, I'm afraid to step out of my fucking building, and I hear you saying this city is fucking fantastic.
Yeah, he's he's in the gentrified part of the neighborhood.
He really is. He really is. But yeah, he survived. They got 6th. I mean, to be honest, NA went almost exactly as you could
I
have
really
predicted.
thought TSM was gonna lose to Shopify. I'm not afraid to
Shopify?
say it.
I mean, you guys,
Yeah.
did you guys scrim TSM at all?
No, I don't believe we did, which is a bit surprising because maybe schedules just didn't line up or something like that. But I like all their players a lot. I like Ari. I think he's super talented.
I mean, yeah,
I don't.
you talked about a lot last podcast that you pointed Moon in his direction.
Yeah, I like Ari. I think Whitemon, from what I hear from everybody, is just a really nice, solid dude. Tomato's a piece of no, I'm just kidding. He's great. I like Bryle a lot as well. I don't really know much about Kasane, so can't really comment, but very lovely. Moon I've known for fucking ever, and Moon's just such a good guy. He really is. Like, he won't listen to this either, but he's a fucking king and a half. He came up to me drunk at the after party, I think, of TI, and he's like, I think I was the problem at DC. And he's like, I'm really sorry, bro. And I was like, dude, don't say that.
Wow.
You fucking great guy. Like, you shucking, it didn't work. Teams don't work sometimes. It fucking happens. Dota's a fickle game. You never know sometimes what'll work and what doesn't. And no one person has ever, like, default except for Matu. Fuck that guy. But no one person determines anything. I actually had such a funny interaction too. I just remember the TI after party. It was like I was in an elevator with Gork going up to the TI after party, and I was like,
Yeah.
yo, you beating Alliance was so fucking funny. And he's like, I fucking folded that org. He was so happy, and I was so happy for it. Not that I was like preying on their downfall or anything, but it's such an unreal situation, It's like, it's so surreal. That's what the word for it. It's surreal. You just didn't expect that to happen, and then fucking Gork just rolls in, ball swing. He's so happy about it. And I was happy for him because he was so happy about it. He was like really just enjoying himself that I was like hyping him up. Our team, let me say, has never loved Gork more than in that moment because of how fucking funny that was. Because it spawned so many memes too, It's like,
I mean, yeah, he bounced him so hard that he ended up taking one of their players.
yeah, it's
He's
like
got fucking Weehaw on his team.
the ultimate disrespect now. That's just so fucking. And then I remember Saberlight saying is like, imagine you train for 2 weeks to play in like the most important thing of your life, and then you lose to fucking to Gork. It's like, oh god, I felt
February
so bad.
12th is when Alliance and Bald play in the new year.
I can't wait. That'll be. I'm gonna whatever I'm doing at that moment. I don't care. Like, this is taking precedence.
Yeah.
This is the number one thing in my life that I have to like look out for. I don't give a shit what's happening. Birth of my non-existent kid, somebody's wedding. I'm watching that in the bathroom. I don't care. I'm just hiding away, fucking tucked away. Like, what's going on? Is Gork winning?
I'm looking at it now. I'm thinking about it. Since the upper division happens first, it gets you a big perspective on what the league is going to look like next season. And so I feel like if you're Alliance, Ancient Tribe, and then the 2 qualifier teams, who I think are like the top 4 of that whole area, you really got to get into upper division this fucking season. Because next season, you're going to have fucking Secret.
Yeah.
And ITB seem like they're no slouches either. But like, more importantly, you're going to have fucking Secret.
Yeah,
Like you
ITB
ain't
good,
getting a
dude.
slot. You're not gonna get into the fucking third season upper division. You got to make it into the second. That's
Yeah,
the
dude.
only way
Puppy
to
ain't
do
gonna
it.
take that disrespect for long. He's
Yeah.
on the climb. My brother is on the real hashtag ascent.
Yeah,
He's
he's
really gonna
gonna
make shit
grind up
happen.
some fucking scrub ass 10K players and start getting his protein for
fucking
making the
Puppy.
upper division run bad.
You dumbasses think like you're gonna run the table on Puppy? Go fuck yourselves. Arrogance. You better get the fuck out right now.
Yeah. Basically, it's like if you don't get out this season, you ain't getting out at all.
Yeah, that shit's actually tough. That's a good point, actually. Also, yeah, ITB super sick team, a lot of promise.
Yeah.
I felt like they went in the wrong direction. Like eventually, they just stopped getting better.
Uh-huh.
But their initial takes on the game, I thought, were really good, and I think they were actually super clever. I think they probably just lost confidence and ideas because they were playing poorly, and then you know when things just don't break your way, so you're not really sure if it's you or like your ideas, and then you just kind of like lose sight of it all, and it's just
Yeah.
not good because nothing's working. That's probably a little bit of what happened here, where things aren't working, you're not really winning, and so you just go the opposite way. Instead of like building upon your success, you just probably strip it away little by little. But those guys have a lot of talent and promise, so I'm sure they'll be fine.
Yeah,
And
actually,
they seem
now
like
that I
nice
look at
guys.
it, they won it was their second series
Yeah,
that they won against Nigma, and then they played up against Tundra immediately after that, took one game there, and then the rest were 0-2s. They really did backslide.
yeah. So I just think that there's probably some level of like confidence affecting you where you're not winning. Ultimately, if you're not winning, you don't really feel the progress in the same way, right?
Yeah.
Because you think to yourself like, yeah, I mean the games are close, but we're still fucking losing.
Yeah, maybe
And how
you
much does
feel
that mean?
like maybe you're just going down the wrong route, and
Yeah.
so you backtrack.
If they were, I think if they had a little bit more confidence in their ideas and stuff like that, like maybe they could have gone down a much better path. But good, talented guys. I really think that we'll meet them in the future. So, and the tiebreakers are funny as shit too. Man, watching that was like peak. Not being a part of a tiebreaker and watching tiebreakers is, Moon said it best. It's just the fucking best.
Yeah. Yeah, I
They're
spent
so fucking funny.
my flight back from Kuala Lumpur watching or trying to watch the second round.
Yeah, I'm so impressed with Entity. They start the season, they get beat 2-1 by GG in a series where I think they probably felt like they should have won. They get a nice little recovery game, then they get fucking smacked up by us. Like we fucking pwned them. Um, and then I think their confidence is probably not amazing, but they fucking mentally recovered and just ran the table. They had some a
2-1
lot of their
Secret,
games.
2-1 Tundra after that, and 2-0
Yeah,
Nigma at the end.
these guys really could have done a lot better. Like their record could look a lot better.
Yeah.
A lot of their losses, aside from maybe the one to us, were very winnable series. Like the OG series, very winnable. The Gladiator series, super winnable. Like these guys could also just straight up be 6-1. The margin for victory at this level is, especially in Western Europe, is like it's so fucking thin. You
Yeah.
never really know.
They did go in the end they they were at some point they were 1-4 against OG, but then
Yeah,
that
when it
sixth
mattered,
game they went
nobody beats them 6
2-4.
times. Yeah. All right, but that's it for me.
All right.
Seems like a nice natural stopping point.
So, good talk, William.
For sure, buddy.